Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in, Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix, peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Bridge, it's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for numbers 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothics, number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack, 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. September 6th. Labor Day has come and gone. Summer was spectacular here in the Adirondacks, but it's September now and it is time to kick off the fall hiking season. Well, technically it's still summer, but once September 1st hits, in my mind, fall has arrived. Today's hike would take my guide client and I, who happens to be a current Great Range athlete, Mac from Connecticut, up one of the most beloved mountains in the Adirondacks. A mountain that kickstarts like a bat out of hell, no less. One of the most relentless climbs right out of the gate of any high peak. I'm talking Whiteface and Esther. And with that, Marble Mountain. If you know, you know. But if you don't know, you're about to know. So here we go. Our plan for today's quick 9.5-mile hike with 3,700 feet of gain was to hike Whiteface and Esther Mountains, starting at the Reservoir Atmospheric Science Center trailhead in Wilmington. A hike that begins with a notorious climb straight up Marble Mountain to get the heart rate beating fast right from the start as we head over Marble Mountain to Lookout Mountain and eventually to the trail junction to Out and Back Esther before finishing the hike up to Whiteface. A unique hiking experience as you pass ski lifts, toll roads, and you even meet up with tourists on the summit who drove their cars to the top. A great hike with magnificent views. Views worth enjoying as long as possible, which was one of the reasons we opted for a rather unconventional route down the mountain. But we'll get to that story. We drove together to the trailhead today from Lake Placid and began our day bright and early with a 6 a.m. start time at the trailhead where we signed in and we were off to the races. So we clicked on our headlamps and we began our hike. All right, well, it's bright and early here at the Whiteface Esther trailhead at the reservoir, the Science Center. Today, Whiteface and Esther is on tap. And Marble Mountain, though, stands in our way. We got to climb Marble first. If you've never been here, Marble is steep, and it pretty much starts feet from the trailhead. So here we go. Time to start sweating really quickly. Now, most Adirondack high peaks require a long 4, 5, 6, and sometimes even 7 or 8 mile hike into the mountains, that long approach just to get to the mountain before you start climbing. The approach for this hike, however, is only 0.2 miles along some half trail, half dirt road, and then the pain train arrives. After the 0.2 mile walk in, the trail goes straight up Marble Mountain. No turns, no winds, just a straight shot. In fact, when you look at the map, the topography line feels almost unnatural because of just how straight the trail is. Nothing like 900 feet of gain over 0.6 miles to let you know, yep, you're climbing a mountain today. Yep, it's as steep as I remember. Whew, man, I tell you, this is a gasser. You just kind of got to find that pace and just go. Let your legs do the work. But yeah, it's all there, Marble. It's been a little while since I've climbed Whiteface from this direction, but it's exactly as I remembered it. It is a gasser, to say the least, as you climb and climb with no turns, no bends, no winding, just straight up through the forest, which is a nice mix of hardwood and evergreens, so the smells were perfect today. The sun was expected to shine and the temperatures were high 60s, just flawless. It's a little different from the 90-degree day that Josh and I had when I climbed these peaks for the very first time years ago, where Josh got nauseous while climbing Marble Mountain. Our lungs were working overtime and our legs were burning, but we powered on up the trail. And I was honestly impressed with Mac's ability during this stretch. I anticipated having to stop pretty frequently, but he just kept plugging along and he held his own very well. Which was great because we were able to make better time than I expected early on. We stopped exactly 0 times on our way up Marble Mountain. Now, I've said it several times on this podcast, and I'll say it again. In my opinion, the hiking pace that you should aim for is going as fast as possible, but as slow as you need to go so that you never have to stop. That, my friends, is the sweet spot. A nice steady pace up the peak. Slow and steady, as fast as possible. Makes sense, right? Now, the monotony of the climb mixed with the burning quads and heavy breathing was almost over as the sun began to shine and we no longer needed headlamps. So we clicked them off and we could see the bright orange glow through the trees to the east just as the sun was starting to make way. It happened right as we were at the top of Marble Mountain, too. So we tried getting a better vantage point to, watch the sunrise and snap a few photos, but we just weren't quite able to see it. We could see the orange glow through the trees, but that was about it. But it was still good enough, right? Still pretty awesome. All right, well, we're up on top of Marble now, so that's good. We got that behind us, so that's cool. The sun is starting to show itself over here. We have some nice orange sky above us. We can't really see it so well, but the sun is rising. Looks awesome. If these trees weren't here, we'd have a fantastic sunrise view. All right, continuing. Now we head up to the Esther Trail Junction, so let's do it. Now, there aren't many hikes where you might need to change your shirt after the first mile, but this is one of them. I didn't, but I certainly could have. And once at the top of Marble, just under a mile into the hike, we began the next phase, the mile trip to our next destination, the Esther Junction on top of Lookout Mountain. Goodbye, Marble Mountain. Thanks for the warm-up. At this point, the trail eases up tremendously and it winds along the ridge in a much more maintainable fashion. It's still 1,100 feet of gain over 1.1 miles from Marble to Lookout, which, may seem like a lot, but in that moment, it definitely feels a lot milder given what the ascent has offered up to that point and what you just did going up to Marble. But our trek along the ridge of Lookout continued here in the Wilmington Wild Forest. The sun was full shine now, the woods were alive, and the mood was strong. A terrific day to be running around in the mountains. And once we arrived at the Esther Trail Junction, marked by a very large cairn, we took our first real break for the day. A quick swig and a quick snack and a break from the backpack. And we have made it to the Esther Trail Junction. Time for a break. Put down the pack. Time to enjoy some nice snacks. A little swig, some water, some electrolytes before the climb up to Esther. It's like a mile from here. Not too bad of a climb either. This cairn is smaller than I remember. I remember it being a lot bigger. But yeah, all right. Quick snack, and then we're heading over to Esther. Trail's pretty awesome so far today. Temperature's great. Sun is shining. Can't really ask for much better. Now, this junction sits at 3,934 feet elevation, so a lot of the elevation has already been gained so far. Of course, there's more to come, but you're already almost at 4,000 feet at this point. And that elevation of this junction is taller than some high peaks as well, technically. So I fueled up with a protein bar and I had some fruit snacks, and it was time to keep on climbing. Off we go, time to out and back Esther. Esther Mountain, we'll see you soon. From the junction, it's a 2-mile out and back, so while the elevation gain is minimum at just over 300 feet, it's still a little over a mile to get there. Now, I've never been on Esther on a sunny day, so I was looking forward to seeing what views present themselves today, because every time I've been up here, the mountain was socked in. And right off the bat, the trail climbs slightly over the true summit of Lookout before heading over the hump down into a small col before the final ascent to Esther. And as I was hoping, I got what I wished for. The views of Whiteface from over here were absolutely spectacular. I snapped a few photos through the trees of Whiteface just looking majestic. As you see the Memorial Highway running up the mountain, the big giant retaining wall, and then that weather center building on the summit. Can't beat it. Now, Esther is the northernmost high peak, with Whiteface being the second most northern high peak. So both of these mountains truly stand alone when it comes to that typical high peaks view that you are used to seeing in the high peaks. It is a majestic mountain through and through. It's the only way to describe it. Now, from the junction, the climb to Esther is pretty gentle. Lots of narrow trails, scratching at your elbows, but it's gentle on the heart rate. Muddy on the shoes, but this is the Adirondacks after all, so that's kind of to be expected. And I was pleasantly surprised with just how often a great view of Whiteface presented itself through the trees during this hike over to Esther. So I took even more photos. And before we knew it, we landed on the 4,240-foot summit just after 8 a.m., marked by a plaque in the ground celebrating Esther McComb, who the mountain is named after and is believed to have done the first recorded ascent of this mountain at 15 years old, mind you. Hello, Esther Mountain. It's nice to see you again. There's the plaque. We have made it. The Esther plaque. All right. Esther McComb, the summit of Esther. It's been a little bit, but good to be back. Now time to eat a sandwich. I'm pretty hungry. I'm sure Mac's hungry. Yeah, you're hungry, right, dude? Yeah. All right. So time for a snack. And we got some nice views of Whiteface on the trip over here. Fantastic. A good time, too. Kind of crushing it, dude. Awesome. All right. Time to eat.
Hey, y'all. My name is Sarah Williams. I have been listening to James's podcast for just shy of 4 years now. I stumbled across it when I was trying to research on how to become a Adirondack 46er. Thanks to his podcast, I have successfully done so. I finished last October. With this research, I also came across James's program called Seek to Do More. So I decided to give that a try. And let me tell you what, talk about life-changing. I went into it knowing I had to commit to 7 daily tasks for a minimum of 30 days. I am now over 600 days into this program, where my mindset went from I can't to I can. It went from I don't know how to do this to how can I get this done. It's changed my mindset from thinking I'm incapable of doing things to I'm completely capable of doing things and then some. It changes you like no program I've ever seen. I am 100% thankful for this program. I went from a woman that could barely walk up my stairs in my house to a competitive CrossFit athlete. In my mind, there is nothing unattainable for me at this point if I just go after it. I went from a woman that worked a job, a 9-to-5, to a woman that is now certified to teach CrossFit, a certified hiking guide, and working jobs that I enjoy and doing things that I love because I'm just not sitting on my couch any longer. I'm going after everything I want in life and then some. So I just want to thank James for starting that program, and the amount of lives changed that I've watched so far is nothing short of a miracle. So if you're looking for something to get stronger physically, but more so change your mindset from you can't to you can, you should absolutely speak with James about changing your life.
And it's sandwich time. So today we have a pair of grilled chicken sandwiches with a delectable provolone cheese, romaine lettuce, pickles, and some homemade mayo with cayenne pepper. Now, if you're not crushing a sandwich on a summit, like, did you even really hike that day? Now, I remember the first time I ever climbed Whiteface and Esther. It was early on in my 46er journey, before I truly started to understand what the journey is actually about. So during that first hike that I went up Esther, I remember as Josh and I were packing up, I said to him, well, I'll probably never hike this mountain ever again. And Josh imparted on me some experience and wisdom in that moment. He said, yeah, we all say that at first, but you'll be back though. And how right he was. You see, that statement was both wise and profound. Even an underwhelming summit or a hard hike, you do eventually kind of forget about the pain of it all, and you remember, any mountain is better than no mountain. Okay, I'll go back again. And you will be back one day, because your 46er journey is really just the beginning. That's what the 46er journey is all about, really. It becomes bigger than just your summit photos and a nice view. A 46er journey is really a personal development journey that's simply just being guided by the high peaks. The journey itself, summiting these mountains, experiencing these woods, that never stops. And visiting these mountains will also never get old either. And yes, some are obviously better to revisit than others, but every mountain has a unique story to tell, and collectively, those stories all tell the bigger picture. So despite telling myself that I would never end up back on this summit again, the mountains had a different story to tell. Now Mac and I packed up and we headed back down towards the junction to begin our hike to the 5th tallest peak in the ADK, the Olympic Whiteface Mountain. On our way down, we passed our first hiker of the day, a woman from Western New York, presumably a Bills fan, I would imagine. Shout out to all my Western New York listeners because I know you guys love your Buffalo Bills. But as we passed each other, I said good morning to her and then she responded, "Hey, I've been to your house," which made me do a double take. Turns out she stopped by for some cookies for my wife's cookie business, the Blue Line Bakery. And shout out to anyone out there who has also stopped by the lean-to and grab yourself some cookies. Now we chatted for a little bit and I learned that she was on her first ever solo hike. She was facing her fears of hiking alone in the woods and she was crushing it. That is what it's all about. Now remember how just a minute or two ago I said that this 46er journey isn't just about views and photos from the summit. Rather, it's a journey of personal development that's just guided by the mountains themselves. Here is yet another prime example of that concept. And well done to her for making it happen. I'll tell you all listening the same thing that I told her. Once you do hike solo for the first time, and the same thing goes for starting early in the dark via headlamp, because I know that's something that scares some people. After like 5 or 10 minutes, it really just does become business as usual, and you kind of find your flow. So if you are nervous to hike solo, you're nervous to start in the dark, I guarantee after about 10 minutes, those nerves will die down, and then the empowerment and the pride you'll feel in yourself for facing those fears and the fact that you're out there doing it, that starts to take over as you hike, and you just kind of do your thing. It really does happen every time. And since I'm shouting people out right now, I'll shout out to anyone who's actually overcome their fears here in the mountains. The mountains have a lot to teach us if we're willing to listen about both them and ourselves. So soon we arrived back at the trail junction with the giant cairn on Lookout Mountain, and we immediately turned right up the trail heading towards Whiteface. From this junction, it's 1.5 miles to the summit with about 1,000 feet of elevation gain, much of it coming towards the end as well. So at this point, the hike is kind of more of the same, a nice gradual and comfortable climb on a 5-foot wide trail, nothing like the first mile of the hike, that's for sure. The trail eventually crosses over a couple of ski trails too, complete with unbeatable views of the mountains to the south, mostly of the Sentinel Range. But once we arrived at the ski lift, we walked over to catch a glimpse of the ski mountain below as the memories of growing up snowboarding at Whiteface every weekend and in the after-school program just flooded my brain. It's been a while since I've been up here, but so many times falling off this exact chairlift trying to get off of the chair. So good. Good times growing up on this mountain. It's been a very long time, though, since I've actually been on a ski lift. All right, just making our way up the trail towards Whiteface. It's nice and gentle now. A nice, comfortable elevation gain as we go here. We just passed the ski lift portion of the trail where you cross over one of the ski trails on Whiteface, but soon we're going to be at the Memorial Highway, and at that point we're on to the final ascent to the top of Whiteface. Pretty good so far today. Pretty good. Perfect day in the Adirondack High Peaks. But we continued on the trail. We headed back to the woods, and soon we arrived at the Memorial Highway Road, aka the Toll Road. The trail runs along the bottom of a retaining wall for a bit, which, in my opinion, once again, creates a very fun experience. It's fun and it's a unique experience to be climbing up this big mountain in the high peaks, and all of a sudden you come to a road 4,000 feet up. Some may not like it, but to me, it's yet another unique experience that this particular mountain offers in the course of a 46er journey. So we climbed the trail, we climbed up some boulders, and when we landed on top of the toll road, I'll tell you, there is a mysterious quality to this road, and I think it's because it's weird just seeing a road up a mountain, especially this high up. Sometimes I wish I didn't know about it, and then I could have that experience, that kind of like, what the heck moment when you're climbing out of the woods and all of a sudden you land on a road which you're not expecting. That would be fun. So we climbed up the boulders and we carried on up the trail, now above the road for the final push to the summit. Once at the toll road, the trail is mostly above tree line, so the views are plentiful. So was the wind, though. Wow, was the wind plentiful. I actually had to take my hat off and hold it, otherwise I would have lost it over the mountain. So that, mixed with being extremely sweaty, certainly made for a chilly final ascent to the summit. The cars were lined at the parking, so I knew that we'd share the summit with a good number of people, but that's fine. It's a giant summit with 360-degree views. There's room for everyone up there. The trail climbs up the eastern ridge of the mountain, and soon we saw the weather center, and then moments later we stepped up onto the large, exposed summit with the views of that figure-8-shaped Lake Placid down below looking as glorious as ever, and the unique perspective of the high peaks line the sky. The wind was howling, the sun was shining, and the tourists were sightseeing. Good old Whiteface Mountain, you certainly never disappoint, and it is nice to see you again. We snapped some photos. I changed out of my wet shirt into a dry one, threw on a fleece jacket as the wind continued to just whip. But there we were. We made it, standing on our final summit of the day, 4,867 feet in the clear bluebird Adirondack sky. The summit was filled with people who drove to the top, taking photos and enjoying the rugged beauty that the Adirondacks have to offer. And I ate another sandwich and another delicious treat as we enjoyed the view. Now, this summit has so much to offer, from views to the Weather Center building and much more. So if you are wondering, the Atmospheric Science Research Center, it's a permanent research center on the summit of Whiteface, and it's been there since 1961, studying the atmosphere, weather, and kind of the impacts on the atmosphere. It's part of the State University of New York school system, also known as SUNY. We only stayed on the summit for around 15 minutes before packing up to head down due to the wind level. We were fueled up and ready for the descent. Mac, however, was a bit nervous today about the trip down the mountain. You see, he suffered a major ski accident a year and a half prior, and the downhill portion of climbing is much harder on his body than climbing up. So he had mentioned a number of times that it would be slow moving going down since he wasn't fully confident on his ability due to the accident. So in order to make his experience as positive as I could, like a good guide, I decided to throw out an idea, an unconventional idea. Hey, would walking down the toll road make things easier on you? This idea of doing this wouldn't even have crossed my mind, but I remember when Sarah Keyes was on my podcast telling me the story of her FKT attempt, and upon completing Whiteface, Sarah and her crew descended Whiteface via the toll road. So he began pondering. So I said, all right, dude, think about it. We'll go down the trail the same way we came up, above the tree line, and then when we have to cross the toll road to go back into the woods, you can make a game time decision at that point. He loved the idea, and he wanted to see how descending this first portion of the mountain goes. All right, we started down the mountain, taking in the views of the ski slopes and the Sentinel Range in front of us, my hat in hand as the wind continued to whip. Minutes later, we were at the toll road. Time to make a decision. All right, Mac, what's it going to be? You know what, he said. Let's go down the toll road. Well, all right, let's do it. And to be honest, I kind of hoped he chose that option. Why? Because I've climbed Whiteface in every direction, but I've actually never been on this toll road. To me, this was a new way to experience the mountain. And as I said before, there's a mysterious quality to this road that wraps around Whiteface Mountain. And I was excited. So we began walking down the road. I wasn't entirely sure what the mileage was, but I knew that the hiking conditions would make it easier on him and his legs so that he'd be much more at ease. So we pounded the pavement. And you know what? It was awesome. Well, we are on the highway, the Memorial Highway. We have decided to call an audible and hike down the mountain via the road here. Mac had a ski accident a little bit ago, so recovering from that, and this was going to make a better trip down the mountain for him. So let's do it. And it's awesome. We got views just the entire way in front of us right now. We got the little retaining wall to our side. There's a picnic table up ahead I can see. Yeah, so we're climbing down the mountain via the Memorial Highway. I've never done this before. I'm actually really into this right now. I didn't record anything on the summit because it was just so windy and cold, and I wanted to warm up. But anyways, really windy on the summit today. Lots of people up there, tourists, enjoying the views. Sun is shining, sky is blue. the views were just as far as the eye can see. But yeah, the wind was just insane. But yeah, here we are walking down the Memorial Highway. I have no idea what the mileage is, but we'll find out. But the vibes are strong. Good call, Mac. Good call. Walking down this road was such a fun and unique experience, and we also had mountain views the entire trip down the mountain. You can't beat that. As opposed to going back in the woods and having no views, this way, you had views the entire trip down. The whole way we got to enjoy them. And it really doesn't get much better than that, if you ask me. Cars passed us, motorcyclists passed us, bicyclists, and even some runners running up the road. It was a terrific experience all around. Now there's chairs and picnic tables too at select spots along the road, so if you ever want to have a nice lunch with mountain views, great place to go. But we cruised down the road, and we both loved every second of it. Mac even asked if this would count as a hike since we're walking down the road. So I asked, "Did you walk up the mountain?" Which he answered yes. "Are you walking down the mountain back to the trailhead right now?" He answered yes. So if you walked up the mountain and you walked down the mountain, I'd say it counts. Whether it's a trail someone cut in the woods or one they paved, you're still ascending and descending the mountain in my opinion. So yeah, I'd say it counts all right. I'll go even further and say this to you podcast listeners. I actually recommend this route because of the views the entire trip down. You know, we're always covered by the trees on the trail, and this is once again a unique element of Whiteface Mountain, and in my opinion, it's worth experiencing. So down we went, wrapping around the mountain, great conversation, the sun was shining, and the views were all around us. Eventually, we passed the toll booth, and soon we were back at the Marble Mountain Dirt Road and arrived back at the trailhead. Hike complete. And my heart was full because I thoroughly enjoyed this toll road experience so much. Now, I don't know what the day's total mileage was because of the road, but it was certainly a hike worth remembering. Great job, Mac, and thanks for choosing 46 Outdoors to guide your trip in the high peaks, and thanks for giving me an experience that I've never had before. And just like that, we have made it back to Marble Mountain Road. There's the dirt road right up ahead of us, and that's where our car is. That's the trailhead, and we've officially made it off the toll road. We've wrapped around Whiteface and part of Esther, and we're back at the trailhead. How exciting. This was fun. This was fun taking this route down. I'm gonna be honest with you, I really enjoyed this tremendously. What an exciting experience. All right, another one in the books. Well, it was another successful day in the woods on Whiteface and Esther. We couldn't have asked for better conditions or a better day in the high peaks. A great way to kick off the fall hiking season. Head over to 46outdoors.com to check out my new book, Adirondack Campfire Stories, my ebook From 1 to 46, a complete guide to climbing the high peaks, as well as my Great Range Athlete training programs, which are strategically designed to help you get in better physical shape for hiking. My guided hiking trips and more can also be found on 46outdoors.com, so check that out if you want to join us for a guided group hike. And you can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, at 46 of 46 Podcast, and at James Appleton 46. But thanks for listening, and check back on Fridays for new mountains, new stories, new guests, and new episodes right here on the 46 of 46 Podcast. The October sessions are coming, and it's going to be exciting. Remember to always leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails, everybody.